the conversation around minimum wage is very, very strong, and that's because people need to survive, they need to make ends meet, they need to cater for their families. I mean, attend to the basic fundamental needs of humanity. You know, talking about food, talking about clothing, talking about shelter, and all of that. But we have seen over the years that the minimum wage of Nigerian workers has nosedived to the tune of about 78%. This data you're seeing on the screen is coming courtesy of Statistica, right? And it clearly shows what has happened to the Nigerian workers' minimum wage for since 1981, excuse me, to date. All right, so you can see that as at 1981, the minimum wage was 125 naira, and that was about $195. And you can see the near parity between the naira and the dollar as at the time. And this is where we are. And then you look at between 1989 and 1990, it increased to 250 naira. And then the dollar was the equivalent of the dollar was $31. All right, excuse me. And then we move up a little bit to 1998, 1999. The minimum wage now became $3,000. I mean 3,000 naira. You can see there on the screen. And the dollar was the dollar equivalent was $32. And then, of course, in 2000, minimum wage moved to 5,500 naira, and then the dollar equivalent was $49. All right, and then in 2001, minimum wage increased to 7,500 naira. The dollar equivalent was $67. In 2011, minimum wage became 18,000 naira, and the dollar equivalent became $117. In 2018, the minimum wage was pegged at 30,000 naira, and the dollar equivalent was $98. And then let's move down, or move up if you like. In 2023, minimum wage remained at 30,000 naira, with the dollar equivalent being $65. And then in 2024, the minimum wage remained at 30,000 naira, the dollar equivalent at $21.22. All right, so when you look at these statistics that we have, courtesy of StatisSense, you have that Nigerian workers' monthly minimum wage over the years compared to the dollar rate. The Nigerian workers' minimum wage lost about 78% of value from 2018 to 2024, which means within this year, there hasn't been any change in the Nigerian workers' minimum wage. That seems to be the crux of the matter. So we're looking forward to how all of these will pan out in the days to come, just to have this issue resolved amicably by all the stakeholders. I'm very confident that there is definitely a meeting point in all of this on the part of the federal government, the organized labor, the private sector, and everybody concerned. And once that is achieved, then we can now begin to have a new lease of life. To see the minimum wage value fall to as low as 78% between 2018 and 2024 is unacceptable. You can see in those data that for those duration, or for that duration, the minimum wage literally has been static. Yeah, has been static. 2018, 30,000 naira. 2023, 30,000 naira. 2024, 30,000 naira. Literally, the minimum wage has been static, and that's definitely unacceptable by every standard. But we're hoping that something urgent will be done and can be done to address this anomaly so that workers can smile again. But I'm just concerned how much can really be given as minimum wage that will make this difference against the background of the economic realities on the ground. Those who have raised prices of goods or commodities, will they be willing to bring it down? Or rather, they will accept the fact that with the new minimum wage, the capacity, the purchasing power of workers has increased, and they just think that it's across the board. And based on that, you can have prices of commodities going up, which will be more challenging. I'd like to welcome very specially a labor devotee, a labor leader, Comrade Muni Mike Modesti Itwa. Thank you for joining us, Comrade.
Good morning, Sonny. Good morning,
Good to have you here.
It's a pleasure.
Well, this conversation on minimum wage is dominating discussion. But the question now is, what is the appropriate minimum wage that will be acceptable? Not just being acceptable, that is feasible under the current global economic realities. Yeah.
Thank you for the question, and thank you for having me here this morning. If you want to talk about the accurate minimum wage that will befit the present economic quagmire.
No, that is feasible.
Oh, that is feasible.
That is feasible.
Okay.
Okay, let's talk about
feasibility becomes a matter of
let's talk about under the current economic quagmire.
Yeah.
What is your take? And then what is practically feasible?
Within the present economic quagmire,
yes,
a minimum of 500,000 naira. A minimum
of 500,000
naira. A minimum for the least paid worker. I can draw the analysis for you. He needs to cater, like we are talking about a family of 6. Medical provisions for the family of 6. Transportation for him to go to work depending on where he's resident. Feeding put at a minimum of, let's say, 20,000, because foodstuffs are pretty expensive. 20,000 a day for 6 people. Because if you want to break it down further, you may be shocked. A meal will be 5,000 naira. But let's take an average of 20,000 a day for a family of 6. He will get water for himself. He will pay band A electricity if at all it is even available. If there's no electricity, he may need to power his little generator if he has any. Don't forget that he has families, other family members who will be dependent on him. So when they're talking about workers are about 30% of the population, I just laugh at them. Workers constitute the bulk of the population because the dependents are even more than the workers. And if you say Nigeria is a population of over 200 million, and you have 30% of that as workers, multiply it by 10 per worker. And let us get the statistics right. So feasibility, 500,000 minimum. What is doable is subjective because governments are not transparent, both at the national, at the subnational, and at the local. They are not transparent. Were you not amazed that government was talking about 48 for 50, up to 60, and they do not have the statistics to back it up? But Labour empirically provided the statistics. But if we want to really say, let us have, we are not even talking of minimum wage. It should be a matter of living wage. No minimum wage can do anything. We are talking of a living wage. The Constitution provides for a minimum wage. That is not to say that when the government says the minimum wage is XYZ, the government is a federal government cannot even pay above, or states, the subnational cannot pay above. They can. Even the local governments can pay above. But our priorities, getting our priorities right, our scale of preference, as far as government is concerned, is topsy-turvy, it's upside down. Every year they churn out budgets. How many of the state governments religiously follow up their budgets? How many of these local governments follow up their budgets if they even allow access to their funds? The federal government, how many times have they come to tell you this is our budget accomplishment for this year? We voted so trillions of naira. For us at the month of June, this is what we have attained. This is what we are pursuing further. Service-wide vote, that's what they call service-wide vote. That service-wide vote, they make do with it anyhow they feel. They call it service-wide vote, and it's budgeted in billions. And they make free use of it. Nobody questions it. The security votes are monthly in billions. in many states of the Federation, where is the security? It's only few state governments that are responsible enough, that are able to juggle between what is the people's priority, or the wants and the needs. There's a difference between needs and wants.
Okay.
But transparency is not in the system at all. That is where the problem is coming from. If a state is saying, for instance, we cannot pay 100,000 minimum wage, bring out the records for us to see. How many
why
states,
you can't pay?
Why you can't pay? How many states would disclose their internally generated revenues? For political patronages here and there, you have more of ghost workers in government payrolls, whether at the state or local government, in most of the cases. For political patronages, they pay these people because in Nigeria, the politicians' desire is always after the next election. The more people you're able to win, you're able to take care of, may determine what the outcome of the next election will be. There's no transparency in the system. Why are they building individuals instead of institutions? What is the agricultural sector's investment on an annual basis? Thanks to some few states who have taken up agriculture. Now you are hearing Nigeria is number 1 now in the palm plantation. Kudos to some states that have made it possible. What is the investment of the federal government in the agricultural sector? Subsidy has been removed. The first few periods of removal of subsidy, all the gains they made, how many agricultural tools, tractors and others have they been able to massively provide for the states of the Federation? To say we have made a saving of X, Y, Z. From this saving, the farming season is coming up. Why not let us provide a minimum of 300 tractors per state? Then you tell the people what we have rescued from subsidy for social period, this is what we are investing.
Okay.
Nobody is doing any of this.
Comrade Money Mike, the concern that has been expressed, even some economic analysis, that when we have this kind of situation where this sort of increase that is being demanded by labor is established or is brought into effect, it will lead to inflation because you have more money in circulation chasing fewer goods. Nigeria is already suffering that.
Before you finish, I will interject you.
Okay.
The trillions and trillions and trillions that were printed by the central bank and pushed into the circulation, was it the Nigerian worker that told them to print trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions and push into the economy?
That could also be as a result of the economic realities.
No, by ways and means. And why are they crying today? The money in the economy is even more than what the economy is supposed to be able to absorb. While Governor Obaseki was busy telling the whole world that time that the central bank was busy printing money every minute, every second, Emefiele and co didn't allow him have rest.
Okay.
And those who were in the economic sector knew too well.
Former Vice Chairman, NLC Edo State, is with us here. Comrade Bashir Kadri, thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you, Duke.
Okay, just to also add that he's a retired permanent secretary, but this one is not tired because he's still everywhere doing one thing or the other. Thank you so much for honoring our invitation.
We're humbled by God's humility.
Okay, we were talking about
Inflation.
Inflation as it relates to this minimum wage increase, which is a natural major fallout for a wage increase. You said you want to really take on that.
I disagree with you.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me give you the analysis. We've just talked about the printing of trillions and pushing them into the economy. And now the economy is oversaturated. Even at that, the banks are not even having access to cash. With the trillions being said to be in the economy, if you go to the banks, they will tell you they don't even have cash.
So where is the cash?
Where is the cash? Where is the cash? You are talking about inflation. Don't we only have the inflation that is far above the ceiling already? Hyperinflation. It is no longer galloping. In fact, it's hyper. The rate is so astronomical. So what are they telling us? Was it the worker that told the federal government to float the naira? Was it the worker that told the federal government to remove subsidy? And at the end of the day, they told us subsidy has been removed and trillions are still being voted for subsidy. Are they telling us again now that they have started voting money for subsidy? Anybody talking about that? Is it the worker that said government who has the constitutional responsibility to provide security, and the same government is not able to provide security, and our farmlands are all deserted? The farmers can no longer go to farm, no production in the agricultural sector, no food on the table. Even the garri that used to be the least, our very best friend, has joined the queue, that we can no longer have access to the garri. Is it the workers? They vote billions for security. Are you seeing any improvement anywhere?
Okay.
Are you seeing it?
Okay.
No, let's deal on this matter of inflation.
Yeah.
Let's deal on the matter. Please permit me to deal on the matter of this.
So I'll come back to you in a moment.
It is when the prayer comes to the body of the poor that they will say, God bless all of us. How have they taken the stand to be able to say they themselves should go on minimum wage because we want to rescue this country? Why can't they decide to go on minimum wage of 62,000 naira? Mr. President was already a made man, so to speak, before he became the president. All of them who are in the National Assembly and the Assembly, they are all made people. These people eat free food. They don't buy fuel. They don't buy clothes with their money. They don't do anything with their money. It's government money, our money. And the workers are the ones rolling the wheel of the economy. And the same people who are rolling the wheel, turning the wheel of the economy, are the ones who are suffering. And most of the troubles are on the workers because of the type of culture we are from here in Nigeria. Because once one person is working, the entire extended family seems to be dependent on that one person.
Monima, let me pause it. I'll come back to you, Comrade Bashir Kadri. I think the major part of this conversation at this stage has to do with what is appropriate and how sustainable it is. We've seen figures being bandied all over the place. The federal government, at some point we heard the minister said, 105,000 naira. And then government came to retract that statement. And then the state governors under the Nigerian Governors Forum came up to say, 60,000 minimum wage is not possible. They can't afford it. Maybe something in the region of about 57,000 or thereabout. And this conversation, Labour is insisting on 250,000 naira minimum wage. What is then the plight of those in the private sector, as it were? Comrade.
Well, Duke, let me thank you so much for bringing me on tape on this discussion. For me, it is about the life of our country, and it's about the jugular of our country. If we manage this well, we get a better country. If we don't manage it well, we have a riotous country. You know, I hear people say all kinds of stories. Some say increase of salary will create inflation, will create that, will create that. And I ask myself the question. First, what is economics? Second, what's the assignment of government? Third is that what is the source of income in our country today that is genuine and legal? The only legal source of income in Nigeria today is public servants. Many other sources they have criminal tendencies. And these public servants and these people want to pummel. You create stories and blackmail them. You blackmail them at every level. Let the political class allow this country breathe. This country has to survive. And the only people who are genuinely interested in making Nigeria survive are the working class. And this is true. Any day, anytime I will say it. I have no apology at all. Because what we have discovered over the time is that when people talk about the civil servant, they blackmail them. Public servant, they blackmail them because they want to make sure that they are the superstar when they are the criminals driving the system. Now, let me come to the question you asked me. I'll tell you this clearly. The salary of the average civil servant or the public servant is what makes the local economy make sense. The local economy today is in the canvas because the civil servant salary cannot survive the system. Let them tell me how many of them goes to the public market. How many of them go to the vulcanizer? How many of them goes to the mechanic? How many of them go to the barbing salon? They should tell me. How many of them does these young men who do this trade depend on, if not for the public servants? You just imagine, Duke, that you don't salary paid in Edo. Go to all the markets in Edo, and you will tell me what you experience in those markets. The market will be complaining, no business. Because the civil servant is the one who drives the macroeconomics. And that is the life of the country. All these big players. It doesn't. What makes the country work is how these people at the level of this level I'm talking about, have their economy strong. So when you talk about paying them minimum wage, and you are complaining that the minimum wage you are paying them 60,000 is too big, you can't pay it. And I ask the question, first, when subsidy removal was coming, and the man said subsidy is gone forever, what was his impression? What did he have in mind? Do you just make pronouncement without plan? That's one. Two, when you said you are going to level all the exchange rate, no more blah, 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 and all of that, what were you having in mind? As a government, we're supposed to be reactive or proactive. We're supposed to be ahead of the problems, or we're supposed to be behind the problems. And you start looking for solutions when people are already there. I expected that they had a blueprint, a strong blueprint on how to manage subsidy removal, and have a strong blueprint on how to manage, of course, the normal flat rate exchange rate. Because they also knew that there will be backlash. And those backlash makes a government responsible government if they can handle them. Now you are blaming the civil servant for those unguided and irresponsible decisions you took without plan. With due regard to the sensibility of everybody listening to me in this discussion. And I think this is where we must call the spade. Let the federal government come and thank Labour for reminding them of the implication of the policies they didn't plan well, instead of claiming this problem. That is one. The second I want to mention to you, sir, is that when subsidies were removed, we are aware that the original, what we get at the beginning, every month before now, was about 700 billion at the share at the FAC, which is 700 and 800 billion at the FAC. Today, FAC shares 1.something trillion every month. In the last month, that couple of months man had resumed, it has been 1.something trillion every month. And I understand that they had money they kept. I understand that the state government have got additional money into their income. And now I expected that what is moral and reasonable was that when the policy you created is creating problem, the gains from that policy, let it be solving the problems. And I expect that when you have this kind of increase that is coming to your purse now at 1.something trillion every month, this is enough for you to say, workers, without even workers asking you, workers, please, let's increase your salary. Without them asking. I don't expect it to be asked at all, because they are aware that the provisor attached to the minimum wage has a lifespan. And that the minimum wage lifespan is about 5 years or thereabout. I think I'm correct, about 5 years.
Yes. 5 years.
5 years.
And that by this year, that 5 years has elapsed. And I expected that a responsible person who thinks well, who is proactive, who is a leader, who shows the way, goes the way, and drives the way, should know that 5 years is lapsing now.
If you're saying that all the proceeds from removal of your subsidy, as it were, should be channeled into paying salary, what happens to infrastructure, roads, health, education, and the likes?
Let me say the point.
Okay.
The point I'm making is this, is that there's now so much money in this kitty. There's so much money in this kitty now. It's not just like normal money, it's real money. And if that money has increased, I expected that a percentage of that money can be made as salary.
Okay.
For the driver of the process,
okay,
for the engine that drives the process. Don't forget that the day the system closed, just imagine what happened during the strike. The entire country was afloat. Is it not true? Mm-hmm. It was the country alive. It has closed. No light, nothing. Because the workers have gone to sleep. Since you told me that I'm no longer relevant, you do the system. And they're not complaining. Everybody's shouting. Oh, the country is going, oh, hey, come on. What is happening? Duke, that one day strike, do you know how much Nigeria lost?
Yeah, billions.
Do you know how much Nigeria lost, Duke? Is that compared to what you use in paying the workers' salary and increased salary? Is that compared to it? Just imagine that thing runs for 2-3 days. What will happen? Even your station here will be shouting because you can't afford the diesel. You'll be in crisis to pay the diesel. And that explains to you the significance and importance of these people we are talking about. And if somebody is telling me that they're not relevant and that 60,000 naira is the salary. What is 60,000 naira, Duke? In your mind, what is 60,000 naira as a person? Forget that you are in media. Forget that you are talking in this system and you're a moderator. Tell me, what's 60,000 naira in your mind? How does it survive the people? That's the question. Now, the issue is this, is that very clearly, we have realized that we know that there is money. They have more than enough money that can do infrastructure and, of course, pay salaries. This is fundamental. Duke, can you begin to harvest in a farm where you didn't plant? Tell me, can you harvest in a farm where you didn't plant? Can you harvest when you didn't use laborers to clear your farm and the farm do well? Can your farm do well when it's not maintained? And who maintains the farm? The workers. And you say the workers that are maintaining the farm should not get it. And then you are telling me that you want to stop trouble. How are you going to stop trouble?
Okay, let me pause you there. Because we don't have so much time, let's talk about this part of the conversation, this minimum wage, which has to do with the state governors under the platform of the Nigeria Governors Forum saying they can't pay what is being proposed out there. I've heard people say maybe now some state governors are actually the real problem. Should we focus more of our attention on state governors? Money Mike, let me quickly start with you.
That is the conspiracy. The conspiracy has always been from the end of the Nigeria Governors Forum. Without due respect, some governors are doing well, and many of them are willing. There are state governments that pay federal wage. And any way that is approved tomorrow, they still continue from there. There are those who pay above the national wage. But what we are seeing is the conspiracy within, from the side of the state governors, organized private sector, and they want the federal government, who will be able to pay even over 100,000, to kowtow to that. They have had increases in their incomes. Like I told you before, 99.99% of our state governments don't disclose their internally generated revenue. The service-wide vote they project for every year, most of them, they do whatever they like with it. That is outside the monthly provision for security. And security we are not seeing. How many of our community heads are in this chain of this taken care of in terms of provision of security? So they have a way of even using the funds to prepare for the next election. They start making reservations. Immediately they get to office, they start looking for other means of making reservations. Financial reservations for the next election.
But there's no evidence to that.
I know, well, there's not everything that you need to, because would they come and tell you they are doing that or not? But you are a Nigerian and you live in this country. Let us now take, for instance, that the governor yesterday, today is now a retiree, because many of them are also earning pension for serving the people for 4 or 8 years. Do you think such a person or his family will ever suffer? They will never suffer. But the commoners, the Nigerian workers, who are even preparing the ground and digging and doing everything to make them even actualize whatever they want to actualize in government, are not catered for. They are not interested. Monkey will be working, Babu will be eating. That is the situation we have in this country. So all issues of grammar of inflation, that is voodoo economics.
Okay, let me pause.
Voodoo economics.
Let me pause it there. Comrade Bashir, let me get your take on the role that the governors are playing on, as far as this conversation is concerned.
Well, Duke, let me tell you, historically, it is not the first time the governors are doing what they are doing. It's not the first time. When Jonathan was in the office, this same thing happened. Minimum wage was approved, and it was not implemented. And NLC had to raise alarm. In that alarm, I was privileged to be part of those who went to see Jonathan. And I can see in his face that he has a trouble with courage. That's the issue. Because a leader must have courage to speak truth to power, and whoever is involved. And he said, he told us that, oh, the governors are the ones who are trying to, whereas we said this has been signed. This thing is already waiting for your signature. It has been concluded. The meeting was held. Chapter meeting was made. Everybody agreed. What is different? The governors were the subject. And it has to go to the governors to appeal to them to listen. Now, let me tell you one interesting thing is this. The governors are still celebrating because we have not faced them yet. The day Labour will face the governors, they will know that these people they are dealing with. Look, let me tell you, a man on the ground will not fear fall. It's not a threat, it's the truth. Because you cannot take a man for granted for too long. Even your child, if you do that to him, a day will come, he will remind you that he's also a human being too. He can react. Now, the governors have been working to insist that the average worker should be a slave, then he should be eaten. Look, there's a limit to which a slave will live in your house and he become a co-landlord. If you're not careful, he will ask you questions you cannot explain. Now, the issue is this, is that the governors are telling me that they cannot pay. A governor is paying 70 naira in this country. A governor. And that governor is not a governor of the highest revenue state in Nigeria. It's at the middle. There are states that earn several times over that governor. And the governor says, I will pay. And he's already paying. It's not that I will pay, I'm waiting for money. It's already paying, Duke. So what does that make to you? Does that give you a feeling that what these governors are saying is correct? Let me tell you, we have 36 states in the Federation. And out of the 36 states, 9 of them are oil-producing states. These, of course, are in the records. And all of these 9 states, none of them, apart from one, that is now paying 70,000. Let's take that from the first analysis. Just one. Now, if you take that as a reference point, do you think that what they are telling you, that is genuine in your mind? Is it genuine that say we cannot pay, and the governors who have this high return say they cannot pay? Now, let me tell you another story. What is interesting here is this, is that everybody wants to cover his gap. Everybody wants to blame labor. Oh, why is labor? Why is labor salary alone? Let me tell you, labor's business as an organization, because every organization has its own policy, have its own rules, and have its own guiding principles. Labor is standing on this tripartite arrangement. One is to promote, protect, and defend the workers anywhere they are. If they are doing their job, so what is that offense? Is that offense?
Okay.
Let the governors tell us, in all clear sense of the word, let them declare what income they have in their state. Let them declare to us.
Okay.
In this particular, like I said just, I said, Edo is my reference point. If Edo can do it, other governors can do it.
Okay.
If you don't do it, then it's mischievous and it's dangerous. And let me tell you one thing they don't understand. If that economy in their states, they think they have money, if the economy collapsed today, all that money, they'll be in the canvas. They should be careful.
All right.
Not to support those who will keep the economy strong.
The conversation ends today. So what is the way out? Because Labour is saying, we're waiting for Mr. President to give his nod or to say something or do something before we know exactly what our next line of action will be. Comrade Bashir, let me quickly start off with you.
Well, Duke, let me thank you. First, I want to say that we all agreed. It's a consensus in this country that workers deserve wage increase.
Okay.
It's not a contestation. What is being contested now is how much of that increase you call. Am I correct? Now, if that is the case, it's very clear that if we agree that the basic reason for this is because worker salary is necessary, it also means, too, that the federal government should be giving workers a percentage that is equal to the increase in the current drama of our country. Now, if you take 300%, I heard him say something, 300%, you're looking at about 90,000 to 100,000. I won't have any reason to doubt that. Labor is not somebody who says, oh, it must be this. One of our principles is dialogue first, dialogue second, and dialogue last. Everybody must agree on where we are going to. Now, my take is that if that increase now comes, why I want to take a second step to that is that what we require in this country is also economic renaissance. Our economy must be revolutionized. We must change from this waiting for allocation to creating wealth.
Okay.
What we have suffered in this country is that what we simply do is waiting for allocation. Maybe when oil came in 1956, in Lobiri, maybe that was the biggest challenge we had. We never knew what to do with it. And so in the confusion, we thought we had so much money.
Okay.
Whereas that oil is supposed to come, we're supposed to invest that money in development programs where the economy will become strong. If our economy is strong today, Duke, let me tell you, Duke, when I started a job in 1979, as a young man, I used to buy shirts for 2.50 kobo, each packet shirt.
How much was your salary then?
My salary then was about 96 naira.
Interesting.
I used to buy packet shirt for 2.50 kobo. And one of the shoes I bought at that time, my uncle was on my neck asking me, why are you going to buy that kind of shoe? Too expensive. How much was the quarry? 65 naira. I'm talking about 65 naira. I'm not saying 650 naira.
Yes.
Duke, my flight from Benin to Lagos
Return
ticket was 72 naira. 72 naira. I'm not saying 750. Not 100 naira.
Okay, a panelist in Abuja was saying that this back and forth on the part of Labour creates a room that Labour is not really serious in engaging government.
No, Duke, no. What that means is that Labour is a patriot.
Okay.
They are nationalists. They understand the dynamics more than anybody discussing. We are not capitalists who do not care about others. We are altruistic. We're not egoistic. We believe that the economy is a global thing, universal. And if it's not good for others, we are in trouble.
Okay.
So everybody has to be rescued.
Okay.
And what Labour has just done now is to remind government that they must go to the economics and change our economy to make it a productive economy so that we can get it. But let me anchor this finally. Is that if somebody tells me that the workers are selfish, I will ask the question, who created the wealth? Who created the wealth? The wealth of this nation is created by workers, both in the oil industry, which we are all relying on. Don't forget that if there's no allocation in a month at the federal level, no allocation in the month at the federal level, no fact they don't meet, there's a trouble. Even them who are contractors, who are businessmen, who are doing all of that, who create the wealth that they come to take and do contract? Who create the wealth? The workers create the wealth. Right. So workers need to be motivated so they can do more and create more wealth. Okay. And government must wake up and
come with the money, Mike. Fanatic on this. Yeah.
Let me just quickly.
What's the way out?
Let me just quickly mention respond to what I heard from the guest in Abuja.
Okay, that's Bello.
He was talking about the issue of states being allowed to determine their own minimum
wages.
Yes,
at their level. Engage workers at their level.
The issue of minimum wage is a constitutional issue. In the United States of America, it is constitutional. It is the central government that determines the minimum wage. So what is happening in Nigeria is not a taboo at all. That is not to say that when the central authorities determine and makes the law in conformity with the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the states now go back. Because all of them don't just take it hook, line, and sinker. That is where you now start thinking of states who do not have the capacity to carry it vis-a-vis all other states who have the capacity.
But the federal government must make
it.
Okay.
It's called minimum.
Okay.
But states can even pay above. Just like Edo has always done. It's just minimum. You can pay above. Then that is why you have the issue of consequential adjustments. For states who may not be able to carry it just the way it has been done, because a federal chart will be out. For those who will not be able to pay it according to the federal chart, they come back to their state labor organizations to say, please, XYZ is what we can pay as percentage increase for salary level this to this. That is where we now start talking about consequential adjustments. So people need to be told about these technicalities, that it is not cast in iron at the federal level, that whatever the federal government has determined is what the states are going to pay. But that basic irreducible minimum, which is the minimum wage, is what both the states and the organized private sector cannot pay below.
Okay.
Be that as it may, I will want to say that the way forward in this is that the governments need to rework the economy. They are paying lip service. The security, they must get it right. The agricultural sector must be made to function and work properly. I wouldn't know whether the sovereign wealth fund, whether they're still keeping that fund. If they need to borrow money to invest in the agricultural sector, every state has areas of comparative advantage. Let them make funds available by way of loans to these states and even the local governments.
Okay.
And let the food be produced for us to eat. Until they do some of these things, we go nowhere.
Okay. All right, Kadri, one last word.
Yes, my last word is this, is that I'm aware that some time ago, federal government gave money for agriculture.
To the states?
To the states. But I want to request that when you are doing that kind of arrangement, there must be a due diligence. You must ensure that you are giving these funds to those who will do the work. Those who will, not political hallelujah boys, for the genuine farmers who will change the story. Nigeria's basic economic driver is agriculture. And that was why you discovered that many years ago, Edo here, called Bende or Midwest, had palm house, or oil palm. You had cocoa house in Ibadan because of cocoa. And which means that was the central point of the economics. In Kano, you find the pyramids. You find cotton. These are fundamental returns that keeps a country running.
Okay.
If you can't feed yourself, how can you take a country?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, the debate is still on. It ends today. Labour is waiting for the federal government to make a pronouncement or express their decision before they know the next line of action to take and in resolving this wage dispute between the organized labor and the federal government.